Today's video is the start of our next section of Trig Basic Learning Targets, Trig Basics 4 through 6, about tangent and reciprocal graphs. This particular video is just to introduce the tangent ratio using the unit circle. So let's recall that when we have a unit circle and we have a point xy on the outside of the unit circle, that the radius or the hypotenuse of this right triangle is 1. Meaning that the distance in the adjacent side is x and the opposite side is y. So when we find sine, cosine, and tangent using opposite over hypotenuse or y over 1 for sine theta, we just get y. Adjacent over hypotenuse or x over 1 gives you x for cosine theta. And opposite over adjacent gives you y over x for tangent of theta. And since sine is y and cosine is x, tangent theta actually equals sine over cosine. So once you find sine and cosine, one option for finding tangent is just to divide sine by cosine. We also can use special triangles. So we're going to make a little chart here with theta, sine theta, cosine theta, and tangent theta, and look at the tangent value in particular. So when we have 0, sine of 0 and cosine of 0 are found just by using the coordinates of the unit circle at 0. Sine goes with y and cosine goes with x, so sine is 0, cosine is y. Sine divided by cosine is 0 over 1, so tangent is also 0 like sine. When we go to pi over 6, we're dealing with a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we have opposite over hypotenuse for sine is 1/2. Adjacent over hypotenuse for cosine is square root of 3 over 2. And if we take sine divided by cosine or opposite over adjacent, we get 1 over square root of 3 or square root of 3 over 3 if we rationalize the denominator. Pi over 4 is a 45-degree angle. We look at our 45, 45, 90 triangle, which has the ratios 1, 1, square root of 2. And we see that sine and cosine are both the same, 1 over the square root of 2 or square root of 2 over 2. And since sine and cosine are the same, when we divide them, tangent equals 1. Or we can see opposite over adjacent here is 1. I'm going to kind of move this, scroll this up a little bit. Okay, pi over 3. Pi over 3 is just the opposite. Sine and cosine just trade places now because we're switching the 30 and the 60 in our triangle. So now opposite over hypotenuse is square root of 3 over 2, and adjacent over hypotenuse is 1/2. And so tangent is square root of 3 divided by 1, or square root of 3. Now the last angle we're going to look at today is pi over 2. Now pi over 2 is at the top of the circle where our coordinates are 0 and 1. 0 for cosine, 1 for sine. But when we divide 1 by 0, we get an undefined number. So tangent is actually undefined at pi over 2. So what is the meaning of tangent? The meaning of tangent is that it is the slope of the angle. Think about the fact that tangent is y over x. That's the very same way that we find the slope of a diagonal line is by taking rise over run, or y over change in y over change in x. So tangent is the slope of the angle. This makes sense because we notice that our tangent value at 0 is 0, and that makes sense. A horizontal line has 0 slope. So tangent of pi would also be 0. Tangent of pi over 2 is undefined. Well, that's a vertical angle right here, and the other vertical angle is at 3 pi over 2. Both of those would have the tangent value undefined. Also recall that all of the trig values are positive in quadrant 1. Sine is positive and cosine is negative, therefore tangent is negative in quadrant 2. Sine and cosine are both negative in quadrant 3, therefore tangent would be positive. And sine is negative in quadrant 4, therefore tangent is negative. And so it makes sense that quadrants 1 and 3 have angles with positive slope, and angles 2 and 4 have negative slope, have angles with negative, quadrants 2 and 4 have angles with negative slope, so their tangent values are negative. So that is our first introduction to the tangent of an angle.